Good morning, everybody. Today, I wanted to talk about running, overcoming injuries, and the power of both knowledge and belief. I'm not sure if all that's going to make it into the title. We'll see. But running is one of those things that's kind of been a big part of my life, and I haven't always thought about that, But the other day, we actually my wife and I went over to a friend's house and, met up with some awesome people, some old friends, and got to meet some new people as well. And a couple of them who were there told us that, we're getting ready for a marathon, and that got me thinking, like, man, I've done 4, and I haven't thought about it in a while, but it's something that always kind of consumed a big part of my mind, as far as, when I would be doing those events, it would consume a lot of my mind, right? Naturally. And I've kind of taken for granted the fact that I've completed 4, and yet to get to even that first one was a big challenge for me. It was a long process, and I'm going to get into that, some of the injuries, some of the mental gymnastics that you kind of encounter along the way. And this episode is really for anybody who is new to running or who's been running for a while and they want to accomplish something like a marathon or even some of those longer distances, like a crazy ultra marathon, because I think a lot of the same principles still apply to that. Now, right off the bat, in case you're curious, I've had to pull out of races, a couple, 2 marathons to be specific. I've completed 4, and my best time was 3:30 and some change. So 3 hours, 30 minutes, and I think it was like 30 or 40 seconds, something like that, which isn't, that's nothing to write home about for a lot of people. But for me, I'm actually kind of happy about that. I think that's about an 8-minute average, and I know that is not going to be my fastest time. I'm going to get back into it and, eventually get under 3:30 easily. When I say easily, I mean, well under 3:30. And so in case you're curious about my stats, my personal numbers, there they are. Nothing crazy, but for a lot of people, just even completing a marathon is a big deal. And let's get into it. I wanted to kind of first provide a background of basically growing, kind of my fitness background, I guess, activity level, whatever you want to call it. I grew up playing a lot of sports. Basketball, I think, is a big one that kind of builds a lot of that. A good cardiovascular base, a lot of running, different lateral movements and stuff like that. And, running was something after high school. I ended up doing a lot of very physically challenging things, different activities. And I joined the military. That's a whole other topic for another time. And I was incredibly, not incredibly, like I was something amazing, but I mean, I was very active, right? At least I tried in my own way to be very active. And the funny thing about running or any repetitive activity, like running, for example, like a marathon, is it can really take a toll on your body. So you can be physically fit, and do stuff like push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, weightlifting, and do like a mile here and there or whatever, and be extremely fit, right? A lot of hiking. But running specifically, for example, it's the first thing that comes to my mind because it's higher impact than stuff like swimming or cycling. If you're doing it over and over again, which probably a lot of you guys have already encountered personally, you can get injured very easily. Especially if there are some issues, with your body, or there's improper form, or, a lot of, there's muscular imbalances, or just maybe you go into it too hard, too fast. And so I wanted to tell you a story where so coming out of the military and just going hard into trail running. I loved it. I've always loved trail running. It's really fun. And I signed up for my first official marathon, even though I had run and hiked incredibly long distances. Like I don't even know what the distances always were, but the marathon was something that's like a lot of people, even if you think you're fit, if you've never done a marathon, there's something about it that is just, it's incredibly taxing, because again, you're doing that same repetitive motion for the entire few hours, however long it takes you, right? And I was deep into the training, probably like got up to about, I think like 16 miles, until all of a sudden, I'd done a few 16-mile runs on the trail, and all of a sudden I was getting this sharp, kind of really excruciating pain on the sides of my knees. I think it was one leg in particular. I can't remember which one. And it hurt so bad just to even walk at the end of the run. I didn't know what it was. Look it up. Of course, I looked it up, and of course it was the famous injury called ITBS, which stands for iliotibial band syndrome. And it's basically, kind of this long band of tendons and ligaments that attaches from the side of your hip all the way down to your knee. And it actually kind of runs down a little bit below your knee, kind of attaches to, don't quote me on this, attaches to your shin. I'm not sure if that's the right verbiage, but it basically goes a little bit down below your shin. And if any of you had this injury, then you'll feel it there. You can feel it in all kinds of different places. What's interesting about this is I've read, and this is consistent with my own experience, I've read that if you get this injury from excessive amounts of squatting, weightlifting, stuff like that, or lunges, then a lot of times you'll feel the hip, you'll feel the pain in your hip. You're more likely to feel it there. But if it's something like running, then it's more likely to be on the side of your knee. And it's really kind of a crazy injury, because walking up steps is fine. For most people, and in my experience, you don't really feel it. It's a tightness, but then the pain comes when you're going down. So down steps or downhill, and it's horrible. It got so bad to the point where I couldn't even jog, a quarter mile, even after a couple of days rest. Couldn't even jog a quarter mile. And I was just like, what is going on with this? I was trying everything. I was doing stretching, even a couple of different rehab exercises that I found online. And I eventually decided to invest a lot of money in something called ART, which stands for Activation Release Treatment. And it's basically where an ART professional uses their hands. Sometimes they have tools, but a lot of the more experienced ones, they don't use tools a lot of times. They use their hands and apply an extreme amount of pressure to the soft tissue in your body and have you do movements. So that's why it's like active. They'll tell you to move in a specific direction, and it really helps, right? And that was like the one thing that a lot of people were saying online too, of like, oh, you got to do this. This is the quickest fix. The problem with ART, in my opinion, again, I guess all of this is my opinion, but in my experience as well, is it can make you feel good in the moment and right away, maybe for a couple of days. But if you're not getting to the root of the problem, whatever's causing that injury, then it's just going to come right back. That's where I think PTs, physical therapists really kind of help you a lot. And at the time, I just recovered from shoulder surgery. I had all kinds of stuff going on with me. But I was seeing this physical therapist who was amazing. If any of you are in the Sacramento area and you want to know their name, then shoot me a message. I'll send you a message back, tell you who it was. But he was incredible. And I asked him, hey, I told him about my knee pain, and a lot of people aren't supposed, a lot of physical therapists, I guess, for insurance or whatever the reason, they're not technically supposed to give you advice or any kind of guidance on something that is separate from what you're being treated for, what you're sent there for originally. And, he, without hesitation, immediately goes, "Oh, it's because you have weak hips on the side." I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, I was like, maybe it's because of this, and he's like, he's like, no, like, I'll prove it to you. Lay on your side. And he had me lift my leg sideways while he was pressing down. And he goes, see, you should be able to resist my hand at that amount of pressure. I'm not pushing that hard, and you can't even push it up. And he's like, you do this one exercise with a band around your legs, and, it's kind of hard to demonstrate here on camera, but it's like you push, basically pull your legs out to the side. So it's like the sides of your hips. You can lay down on a ball, one of those fitness balls. That was how he demonstrated it to me for the first time. There's all kinds of other advanced movements, but he's like, you have to go to failure, do a couple sets of that a day. It'll go away, and you'll fix it. And I was just, after months of trying so many different things and having to pull out of my first marathon, I was like, if this is true, then this is, if this is really going to work, then this is incredible. So I couldn't, because at the time I couldn't do a lot of upper body exercises, or definitely, no weightlifting with my upper body. I started getting back into running, or at least trying. I do that, and I went from not being able to run a quarter mile to then all of a sudden I could run multiple miles at a time with zero pain. That injury was gone, and I wasn't even stretching that much at the time, to be honest with you. Even though stretching is important to help avoid and heal that injury, as well as, in my opinion, all injuries. Stretching is awesome, but that was such a mind-blowing experience. The fact that he showed me one exercise, he's like, this is all you got to do, while he was treating me for something else. It took him like a minute to just tell me this and to demonstrate the exercise, and that fixed it entirely. Long story short, I signed up for my first marathon. It was in Los Angeles. It was the LA marathon, where they go from like the Dodger Stadium all the way down to the Santa Monica Pier. And I completed that. I think my first time, it was around 3:40, 3 hours and 40 minutes. And I'll never forget, that experience was so incredible to go from, in my mind, having to accept like, man, maybe this is just some crazy injury that I've, gotten in my early 20s, and I'm just not going to be able to run anymore. Like, no more long distances, maybe a mile here and there, and I'll just do sprints, whatever. I can still be fit. I can still look good. And, I can swim, cycle, because cycling was never a problem. And I went from that, all of a sudden, just kind of subconsciously, at least accepting that in my mind as the new reality, to then all of a sudden I completed my first marathon. But back to what that felt like was, it was around mile 18 when I completed mile 18, and I had no feeling of the injury. It was incredible. Of course, you're hurting at that point. Anybody who's run a marathon, it's very painful, especially towards the end, but you can kind of tell the difference between pain and an injury. And I had no feeling of an injury, and that was the biggest high that I had ever felt, ever. It was from exercise, at least. Just kidding. But it was incredible because I had never run it's 26.2 miles, and I had never run that far. I think the far I did get up to like I think a 20 miler once or twice in the training, but so you never really know, like, oh, am I going to be able to go that far? But once I hit the 18 mile point and then 19, 20, it started sinking in to 100% certainty. I am going to finish this race. I'm going to not only, finish it. I was going to crawl across the finish line if I had to, but I'm not only going to do that, I'm going to do it injury free. And this feels amazing. It was incredible. So, I'm forever grateful to that physical therapist and other people along the way too. Like the active release treatment, I don't want to make it sound like that didn't help me at all. In fact, I still see somebody who helps me with that, who does that for me, and it definitely helps. I think everything helps, but you really have to fix those muscular imbalances that you have. And a lot of people theorize too that the ITBS that we've been talking about specifically is an injury that you'll get later on in life. Supposedly, if you're in your 30s, you're more likely to do that because you stop doing lateral movements. You think about if you're growing up playing sports like basketball, there's a lot of side to side, tennis, especially stuff like that. A lot of them don't really encounter those injuries because they have very strong hips on the side and they're used to moving in different directions. Now, what do we do as adults? You sit at a desk all day, and then even the disciplined people will go to the gym and you run on the treadmill for 30 minutes. You're just running in a straight line, and that's not really how we're supposed to move. I'm not going to be one of those people that just talks about how we are supposed to be moving, and you have to walk on the grass for 6 hours a day. Nothing like that. But it's by the way, I'm pausing here and there just because my dog in the background, but it's incredible to me that just figuring out those exercises is really beneficial to us. And so that's kind of the power of knowledge, that what knowledge can do for us. Band work is what saved me. And, my current situation with running is, unfortunately, I had to pull out of my last marathon. It even feels kind of lame to have to even admit that. But I will say that it didn't, while it was kind of a hit to my ego at the time, I'm just like, damn, I've been training for this for months. It was, I think, like three or 4 months I had been training, and I wanted to PR. I wanted to get below 330 easily, and I had to pull out because of hip issues. And I attribute that to not enough stretching, not enough mobility work, and not enough injury prevention. But even right now, it's like, I'm not that upset about it because, especially it's like with our son, family, work, stuff like that, everything that I'm trying to balance and be successful with. I knew that I was kind of pushing the limit as far as like how much time I'm willing to put into this. And it's just a reminder, especially in my mid 30s, I have to devote that time. If you want to be successful in athletics, you have to give it the time that it deserves, to prevent those injuries and stay mobile, stay agile, so that's kind of my current situation, right? With running is that would have been my 5th marathon. I pulled out of that. But I'm going to do that hopefully, probably in the next couple of years. I would say I'm not training for one again right now, even though I've kind of feel like I've healed that injury and I'm back to running here and there, at least a couple of times a week. I'm in no rush. I have a lot of things going on right now, but I love running, and that's kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about is basically the benefits that I've seen from it, that I feel like is unique. The things that are unique to running is that runner's high that people talk about. That's a real thing. It's almost like a primal activity. I can't really explain it. But for me personally, it's fun to listen to music, for example, like while you're running, but even without music, I get that high sometimes. And it almost just feels like you're more in touch with kind of human roots, I guess, and just running, especially trail running, when you're out there. And, there are all kinds of experiences I had when I was going to college in Los Angeles. I hooked up with this running group in Santa Monica where they still do this too. They meet at 6 a.m. every Thursday, and they go for these long runs. It's like 6 to 9 miles, usually like 6 to 8, I would say, sometimes 5. So 5 to 8 mile trail runs, and it's every single week without fail. And when I started doing that with these guys and girls out there, there are some runs where it would be up to like 40 or 60 people there. Some runs it's only a handful because they rotate the locations every week. But it was one of the coolest things, just thinking, because I had another shoulder injury. So I had to stop doing this other workout program that I was doing at the time that was like kind of weights, almost CrossFit, like that I was doing with a buddy of mine who was training it. And that was incredible too. But while I had to stop doing that and I decided to start focusing on running, that was kind of a gift that I stumbled upon that running group. And it's just one of the coolest things, I think, one of the best activities. And I will say, if any of you out there are interested in running or you want to get into running, but you feel like you keep getting injured, find somebody who is very knowledgeable about that thing. Because like I said, what happened with me, the ITBS, I don't know what that looks like for you, whatever it is that you have to overcome physically, but there's a really good chance that there is a solution out there, whether it's some kind of specific stretch that you can do, holding for minutes at a time, or starting slow though. Always start slow. Be careful. Don't kill yourself with the stretching or overtraining. But I will say, like, another quick example with running that's a lot of people don't know if you're not into running is like you're supposed to land on your forefoot, and what they call in running is heel striking. So, and I used to do that as a kid, and kind of growing up. So basically when your foot hits the ground, you're supposed to land almost flat-footed, basically. So it's more strain, it's more taxing on your calves, right? And your Achilles tendon and stuff like that. But once you build up to that, not only are you much faster because of just the physics of it, you're not stopping yourself every time you make contact with the ground, but you're also going to be less injury prone because your hips, or your feet should be underneath your hips. And it's almost like you're falling forward and you're pulling on the ground as opposed to your feet coming out in front of you. And it's just less contact, less of an impact on your body. So starts with the foot, knees, and then hips. If you have that shock going all the way up your legs, you're going to be much more prone to injury and have a much higher chance of that. And so that if you're into running, that. And I remember getting running shoes this one time when I was like 19 and really started learning about all of this. And when I was getting fitted and for running shoes, I don't think it was Fleet Feet, but it was some other kind of place that was really, really good also. And I remember talking to this woman there who was a very experienced runner. And I asked her about that, like heel striking, like, oh, that's something I'm worried about. I'm trying to work on that, like, do you have like some kind of insoles or something, or like any, I don't know, techniques on the side that I should work on? And she goes, in a perfect world, nobody would heel strike, but I run marathons at a 6-minute pace and I heel strike. So there was somebody who is able to keep running, it performs at a very high level, and has been able to keep doing marathons without getting injured while heel striking. So it just shows, there are always going to be things that you can improve on, but if you can get away with it, great. But if you are getting injured and you're looking for things to kind of help mitigate that, then that might be one of those things, is to avoid heel striking, and, make sure you work out those muscular imbalances. So I wrote out a quick list of things that in my experience really helps prevent getting injured. So like the last one I unfortunately had to pull out of, I know on this list where I fell short on. And when I get back into it, I'm going to be taking more measures to make sure that I hit all the points on this list. So, and it's in this order, by the way: strength. So going back to those muscular imbalances that we were talking about, that's what fixed my ITBS. It wasn't ART. It wasn't stretching, nutrition, sleep, none of that, even though every single one of those are important and can help you. Like seeing a chiropractor is incredibly beneficial. Stretching is almost imperative. All those things are important, but the muscular imbalances can really help you. And by the way, if you see a sports professional or somebody who is very knowledgeable about all this stuff, there's a good chance that they can even provide those exercises for you in addition to, giving you adjustments or giving you ART, so that you can help avoid those muscular imbalances. So in this order, we have strength, your training schedule. That's a possible tie with strength, but not likely. 3 is flexibility. 4 is form of whatever the exercise is that you're doing. Running is no exception to that. Sleep, and then nutrition. So strength, training, flexibility, form, sleep, nutrition. All of those, we could do a whole other podcast episode about every single one of those, actually. But in my experience, what's helped me avoid injury are those. And listen, I'm not some sports professional or running expert. That's not what I'm doing these episodes for. I don't want to start talking about all of that stuff and spend too much time getting into the technical aspects here. But I did want to do this episode and talk about discuss this topic a little bit with you guys, because, if you just push a little bit, dig a little bit deeper, don't give up on something that is important to you. You find that knowledge. There's going to be somebody out there, especially nowadays with the power of the internet and everything. Find the person who knows the solution, and then believe in yourself. I did a video about this, or I think it was just a caption I wrote for one of my Instagram posts. I mentioned the phrase "believe in yourself," how that's something we've always grown up with, or at least, a lot of people. Like for me, I don't know about you, but for me personally, I've always heard "believe in yourself," right? This may sound like such a, pedantic or just mundane detail, but in my mind, or at least the way people were saying it to me, at least the way I was perceiving it, the emphasis was always on believe in yourself, right? And then I realized, the emphasis should be on yourself. You got to be self-reliant, obviously, but it's the belief in yourself specifically, nothing else. When I would be in certain situations and be like, oh, like believe in yourself, it used to be like, yeah, okay, like yes, I'm doing it. But you have to find that ability in yourself, right? And so, going back to that first marathon, man, that was such a thrill for me to complete that, despite all of whatever physical or athletic achievements I had leading up to that point. I've had plenty of failures too, different encounters that were emotionally significant for me. That was by far just, it was a very meaningful moment, even though, who cares, whatever, like everybody runs a marathon, or, a lot of people do. For me personally, that was something that, because again, I didn't know if I would be able to even do it, if I would ever even be able to run 5 miles again, honestly. And then that, just even saying that now sounds kind of crazy to me. I don't even like saying that, but at the time, that was kind of where my mind was. And when I found a solution and I realized, okay, I'm crossing, 18, 19 miles, I'm going to finish this race. It is such a phenomenal feeling, and I want to get back into it. I want to get to that point where you can, where I'm going to fly across the finish line. Not broken most of or I would say like all 4 of my marathons that I completed. It was just extremely painful. And I would imagine, most of them are going to always be painful, but I want to get that PR and finish at a faster pace. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with today, is the power of, again, that knowledge, the belief, and then just overcoming those injuries with the faith, the belief that you are going to. I promise you, it might be that, maybe you had some kind of accident, something happened to you, or you had some kind of injury where you're never going to be at 100% again. And that's okay. That's part of being active and just living a happy life as well. That might sound obvious, but there's still an element to believing that you can get to that next level, or to that step that you wanted to, that you think is not possible, because you can go so much farther than you think. Just have those segmented steps where you can take and be like, okay, I'm going to take this step to not get injured. And it's just building blocks. So anyways, yeah, running is cool. Running is fun. And I'm just going to leave you guys with that. So keep pushing. If any of you out there, younger, older, whatever your situation is, just get after it. And then find the solution, believe in yourself first and foremost, and have faith that you're capable of a lot more than you think. All right, guys, have a good day.